House of the Dragon episode 1, where Matt Smith steals the show, and half of the cast are so boring, they make me want to eat my own foot just so the pain can make me feel alive again. Trying to force your most boring characters into primary roles is a brave take, especially one for a show which I don't know why it exists. Look, I already know you fail, I know your entire house is destroyed, so what is there to keep me watching? Because quite frankly, it's not the ones you're trying to push into the lead roles. Matt Smith, though, he's awesome. We start in the past, the king is ill, and he gathers all of his nobles together in order to vote in who should be the future leader of the realm. It's the great choice in life. Do we choose a type A or a type B? A prince or a princess? Together they chose the prince, and having watched the first episode, I can entirely agree with them, considering the alternative is as entertaining as watching paint dry. They make a big deal about how the princess, as a woman, will not be able to lead the realm, but you know, there's other things she can do with her life. Write episodes of She-Hulk. But they say the king called a vote because otherwise the entire realm would have torn itself apart. Whoever the future leader needed to be, it had to be chosen by the people. Everyone had to agree. Lines of succession exist for a reason, for stability, and you can't go changing them just because you've read the latest Twitter thread, which seems to be the entire foundation of this place. Someone told me I should change my mind, and so I am. But the whole angle of the only thing that can tear down the House of the Dragon is itself seems weird for a prequel series, considering we know that that's what they actually do. There's no risk here, there's no danger, there's no hook, because we already know how it's going to end. So you'd think they'd create something in order to drag you into the work, but they don't. They're really hoping that the "we need female leaders" angle is enough to get you into this series, and I'm not sure that's enough. Especially given the quality of their storylines. We are now 172 years before Daenerys proved that a Type B should never be on the Iron Throne, where we ask the question, should a Type B be on the Iron Throne? Call me crazy, but I feel like we've already answered this question. We get a scene with the aforementioned Type B flying a dragon. The CGI is a mix of great and really, really awful, but I'm not a CGI person, I don't really care. As long as it doesn't drag me out of the work, I'm fine with it. You simultaneously get really cool scenes like this, and really awful ones like this. But given the quality of the rest of the show, it doesn't bother me at all. Didn't really bother me. The costumes and the sets and everything else seem to be up to the standard that you would expect from Game of Thrones. So I'm more than willing to forgive them on anything with the dragon. But given the quality of the sets, the costumes, the lighting, I really don't have a problem with this scene in particular. It was just one as it appeared, I'm like, oh, I hope you don't do that too often. Given the fact there's no White Walkers or any threat in general though, probably won't need to, which is kind of half the problem. If I wanted a show that largely focused on sewing and relationships, then I could have gone and watched Bridget Jones's Diary rather than Game of Thrones. But we get the two childhood friends discussing the size of the dragon, how he can saddle too, and yeah, I don't think I'm going to go on that dragon just yet. I get the whole setup and payoff idea, it's just can't we come up with something a bit more satisfying? But they lead the dragon off into a deep dark cave, which from what I remember of Game of Thrones was actually a punishment over there, so I don't know, if I had a dragon I think I would have given it better chambers than that. And here we are back again, before the entire place got burned to the ground. So we follow the two ladies back to the castle, even though they don't do anything entertaining during the entire episode, and we visit her pregnant mother. And remember, pregnancy is a massive deal, even though it's a perfectly natural process that we've done for literally thousands of years. No, I'm not joking, the cast literally think that you have a 50-50 chance of making it during this entire period of history. All I'm saying is if that was true, you wouldn't be watching this video now. But who cares about the truth? We've got a message to push. But we have a discussion about how the daughter will soon serve in this same bed. That this is the way that Type Bs actually serve the realm. They give birth to important people. And I have to say, actually, it makes a lot of sense, although I have a feeling that's not the message the rest of the series is going to send. I have a feeling the show will go, yeah, well, okay, you could ensure the survival of your entire civilization, but have you ever considered you could be out there fighting? Although I have to say, she has an incredibly strange attitude towards her husband.
We have royal wounds, you and I. The childbed is our battlefield. We must learn to face it with a stiff lip.
Oh, the struggles we go through lying on our back. No one has suffered more than us. Men go to die in war. Type B's most affected.
Now take a bath, you stink of dragon.
That's the same quality of acting you can expect from her for the entire episode. We are 7.5 minutes in. By this time in She-Hulk, she'd already turned into She-Hulk and started going off attacking people at a bar. In this episode, I've barely talked about anything. Why? Because in this show, until Matt Smith arrives, nothing really happens. I know some people describe the show as a slow burn. I prefer to describe it as boring. But we get to the inner council meeting, and the king is more concerned about his tournament and his future son and everything else that's just going on in the realm. Meanwhile, this guy's telling him about how there's a triarchy which is going out and it's destroying pirates in the realm, and actually you should be really concerned about it because they're going to start messing up your trade routes. Now, let's just get past the idea that this guy has silver hair and it looks ridiculous. Look, it wasn't in the books, but we've changed it because we had to. At least this author's alive, I suppose, and he signed off on it. Look, if you want to destroy the aesthetic nature of your own work, I guess I can't complain if you're still alive. We gave him enough money, he's fine with it, alright? But despite this fact, every single person in the room underestimates the potential threat of what this guy is doing, except one person. I'm sure that's not going to come back and bite him in a future episode. But we move on to talk about the Town Watch, because lots of this episode is just setting up future characters all the time. Do you know this? No, I didn't know this, even though we talked about it before. Yeah, but now you know this, and that means the audience knows this. So, now we're talking about the Town Watch, and that is Matt Smith's department. Yeah, maybe Matt Smith should attend these meetings. You know, he is your brother and is the leader of the town's watch and meant to be leading them. Look, it's set up and payoff, although at least in this one, it doesn't just spell it out for you like you have the IQ of a 10-year-old, like a lot of other shows would. Anything on Disney+. But the king stands by his brother. Yes, he's been working on the town's watch, it's very costly, but I'm sure he's getting it done. And as we see later, oh boy, is he getting it done. But while we're talking about this, of course, we've got to remember the pirates. The pirates are interrupting the trading lanes. You must listen to this. I don't know why none of you will listen to this. It's very obvious that this is going to be a major problem in the future. Literally, no one in the room listens to him. I'm sure we're not trying to say that he's the only reasonable, intelligent, and just leader out of the entire group. That would be stupid. He's also the only person who refuses alcohol during the very important meeting about the future of the entire city. Just consume next product. But we start to discuss their future jousting tournaments. It's meant to celebrate the king's future son. At least they hope it's a son because they really need an heir. And I think we can all assume it is a son, considering this guy has consulted his moon charts. Oh yeah, it's a Tuesday, and that means he's definitely got dangly bits, 100% certain. I kind of think that anyone that's managed to convince a king that that's actually science deserves his place at the table, to be honest. But they suggest delaying the actual tournament until the child has actually been born, which does seem reasonable when it's a 50-50 chance and you don't know which one it's going to be. But he's like, no, it's fine. It's going to be a week away, and by then my son will be born. I know it's a son. I obviously know it's a son. I've had a dream about it. I mean, seriously, I dreamt that I won the lottery one day, but I'm not going to go out and spend the money just in case it happens. But he's like, look, shut up. I know there's a boy in her belly. He's going to be born. He's going to take over. He's going to be the heir, and everything will be fine. I'm not sure if you're aware of the very obvious flaw in his plan. This is kind of what I mean when I say that the show literally has no hook because everyone can see it coming a mile off. But his little dragon riding daughter isn't all she seems, and she has his sort of, I don't know, is it his bodyguard, his champion? Either way, his loyalty. And he takes her to the throne room. And on that throne is Matt Smith. Literally, the saving grace of the entire episode. I was never that big a fan of him as Doctor Who, but in this role, he's actually perfect. As it is, I'm like, okay, I'll see a few more of the episodes, but without him, I'm not sure I'd be so generous. Every scene that I like seems to have him in it. But obviously we've got the sword throne. Have to be careful how you sit in it, lest they, cut you. Yeah, these episodes aren't the only thing that has setup and payoff in it. But she's like, what are you doing here? This chair could well be my chair one day. Because he is actually in line to the throne. It's just, unfortunately, there seems to be an unborn baby in the way. Not if you're executed for treason. I don't think anyone would get executed for treason for sitting in a throne. Seems a little bit harsh. But she says, you haven't been in court in ages. Court is so dreadfully boring. And I do like this bit, the idea that perception is reality, and you can create some kind of mythos around yourself, which you can then take advantage of whenever you want. It's something you don't see in many TV series, but is done well for this character. It's just unfortunate it seems to be only for this character. But we get, I heard your father was hosting a tournament in my honor. No, the tournament is for his heir. Just as I said, it's for me. One of the few hooks of the episode is actually matching this man's arrogance with his own plans. It does give you a reason to keep watching, but I am concerned, judging by the trailers, that it seems that in the future he's just going to get manipulated, he's going to get led around. And if that happens, what you end up doing is castrating this guy and removing his only reason for existence, his only reason that that he's actually interesting. If you make this guy get led around by the nose, he's not only going to be humiliated, but you're going to remove anything of interest from his character. So this is a show which could very easily just destroy its main and, quite frankly for me, only attraction. But he says, until your mother actually brings forth a son, you're all cursed with me. I know what you think of me, but I'm going to play around it anyway. Oh, we're still doing a review, are we? Yeah, we're back to the two most boring characters in the show that never do anything. They're worried that a baby will overshadow them. I don't know how I'm going to cope with the excitement. She's not interested in leading and just wants to fly around on Dragonback. And she's obsessed with position and is like, oh, I can't believe you're not interested in leading the realm. I don't care. Then she just memory dumps a load of information about history on you to prove that she's intelligent for the future, so that when she starts inevitably taking over the entire place, you know, oh, well, she was always intelligent. But we cut back to the king and we find he's got a wound on his back, which, it doesn't look healthy. He says it's a cut from sitting on the throne, but, I don't think a cut should look like that. They decide to keep it quiet from the people, put on leeches, and quarterize the thing. Personally, I would be looking at the throne and what cut him, but apparently, no, we're not even going to consider that as a problem. Oh, I have no idea what's going on here. So we are flying through the show at record speed. Quite frankly, it's because nothing's happening. The queen's in a cold bath because it's all the maesters will allow. She is pregnant after all. For some reason, that means you can't have a warm bath. I don't know. She literally describes it as a miserable pregnancy. We've spoken about having a stiff upper lip and miserable pregnancies. You can tell the women in this show really love their husbands. But she warns the king, you know, this could actually be a girl. There's no saying it's a bloke. I mean, you know, you keep relying on it. You've thrown a tournament in his honor, but you don't know in advance. But he's like, no, I had a dream, and that means it's 100% certain. Have you never had a dream before? Have you ever had a dream where you could do what you want? You wanted to do so much you could do anything. You think I'm joking? That's the quality of the script. But because of his dream, he's convinced that he's going to have a son, and it's a good job. She's like, look, I've had 5 pregnancies in 10 years, and all of them have failed. I can pop out this one, the only one, and I'm not going any further. And at this point, I'm like, yeah, fair enough. He can always trade you in for a young model. It's fine. I do think the future of the realm is more important than you. And you may be like, oh, you can't say that. I'm British. We had Henry VIII. Compared to him, I'm an angel. But at this point, the show starts to get interesting because we cut back to his brother. He's leading the town watch and they're basically his private army at this point. It's like, before me, you were stray mongrels, and now you're a pack of hounds. So go forth into the city and do what you are trained to do. And oh boy, do they do what they were trained to do. My brother's city has fallen into squalor, and it is our job to prevent it. So they charge through the gates, start marching off in different directions, and these people, they do walk past. But I'm a bit confused as to what happened next. Because they start chasing people down in the streets, and just start beating hell out of them with truncheons. It's like a London street on a Saturday night. Literally not a single piece of mercy happens to anybody. They stop random people running away on horses, and then just sweep in and start beating them all in the face. We go in and raid people's homes, and then do what we always do. You know, get a truncheon and start beating people in the face. And Matt Smith even goes out in his badly designed helmet. If you notice in this one, there's no wings on the side. That'll come in handy later. Ooh, foreshadowing. Like, literally, they just pit up entire groups against the wall and start beating them in the face. Then we get the severe bit, which I'm not really sure if we can show here, but basically, lots of hands being cut off. And other pieces, which are a bit further south, if you get my meaning. Although, given the crime, I've got to be honest, not gonna cry about it. Some might call it a coin purse. Now, the weirdest part is when he decides to get involved himself. Because he walks up to this guy who's being held by his arms, raises his sword round like he's playing golf, I half expect him to yell 4, and then somehow cuts this guy's head off from this position. And the only thing I'm asking is how on earth did he manage to do that without annihilating the 2 people in front of him as well? Because that's one hell of a swing. Somehow, though, he manages it. They say this was an unprecedented roundup of criminals. There were 2 whole wagons that had to be dragged by horses away, and I'm kind of thinking, well, yeah, but kind of fair enough, isn't it? They say these were summary judgments, just meted out by the people themselves. But the thing is, as they're doing it, it looks like he's just marching out in the street and grabbing people, whoever's on the street. It doesn't look very targeted. It looks like they just marched out and gathered whoever was there. But from the conversations afterwards, all of them were actually targeted. All of them were criminals. Not a single person here suggests that they weren't criminals or didn't do what they were accused of. And so it makes it look like all of these people knew who the criminals were, they just hadn't punished any of them. It makes this entire conversation weird, as now they're just arguing that he acted on his own, not that he actually did things to innocent people at all. And so I have to ask, if they knew who all these criminals were, why didn't they act on them themselves? But as they walk back into the council chambers, Matt Smith is already there, and he hears them talking about how, yeah, you can't just let him do that. Of course, this guy doesn't exactly have the testicular fortitude to carry on saying what he was saying before, so when he sees he's actually there, he, we say, moderates his tone. He's like, I want you to explain your doings as to, the Town Watch. The City Watch is not a sword to be wielded at your whim, and it's like, well, it doesn't seem like it was. It seems like it was wielded against criminals, which would be the point of a City Watch. So he hits back, I was just enforcing the city's laws. I was doing what the people wanted. They're out there petrified, scared, and here you are saying that I went too far against the people that you wouldn't even act by. Wouldn't you prefer someone who acted and took care of the problem, even if you disagreed with his methods, rather than someone that did nothing and let those people take advantage of all the innocent civilians in the town? He's kind of nailing that lawful evil vibe, I've got to be honest. And the king agrees, of course you should, I just hope you don't have to maim too many people. Well, time will tell, we'll have to wait and see. It's that great alluring quality of, yeah, okay, he did something horrible, but for the right reasons, so we'll let him get away with that one, and then he just continues to do what he wants until you no longer want him to do that. This is what I mean about him being the best character. He carries scenes on his own that would be boring without him there. It's just unfortunate that the show wants to keep injecting the most boring of characters into as many scenes as they can physically get. And I have a feeling that in future episodes, that's only going to get worse. But interestingly, this guy stands with him. He's like, the City Watch is meant to instill law and order. People should fear them if they're breaking the laws. He will take any side, say whatever he needs to get favor from the person he thinks it'll be most useful from at the time. The fact that he'll do it publicly, though, could be interesting in the future. Of course, no one expected this guy to just come out and insult his wife. Not generally an argument-winning tactic, but let's see where it goes.
I think my bronze bitch is happier for my absence.
Don't think anyone saw that coming, did you? Of course, the guy keeps on. She's an honourable lady of the Vale. Yeah, that's going to convince him.
Men are said to sheep instead of women. I can assure you, the sheep are prettier.
I always wondered why those rumours got around in the UK. I'm sorry. Not sorry. But for some reason, this guy's incredibly offended. You gave a vow to your wife? He's like, I'll give it to you if you want. I don't know what you're complaining about. I mean, it's funny, but it's one of those arguments in the show where you're like, I don't know what this has got to do with the story. What's going on and why should I care is one of the fundamental problems in the show. I don't know why I should care that these two guys are falling out, or why I should care about his wife at all. Especially when he stands up as if he's going to fight him. It's like, look, dude, you definitely lose. You may have grown a beard, but those chains tell me everything I need to know. But the king finally rules him in. He says, we spent a load of money on your watch. This is exactly what you asked for. Enforce the law, but try not to go out and just make any spectacles like you did before, please. Ah, understood, your grace. And he walks out. And every single person knows he's not going to pay too much attention to that. This is the second interesting scene in the episode. Both of them have Matt Smith in. It's not a coincidence, he's just an interesting person in a field of dross. So we go into a scene I can't show you, and let's just say it's very Game of Thrones. Apparently the showrunners promised that it wouldn't be gratuitous. Let's just say that this scene disproves that one. I'm not against it, I'm just saying don't promise it if you know that what you're saying is a lie. I mean, we all know why you're doing it after all. It is a Matt Smith scene, though, and I'm sure that makes quite a few Doctor Who fans very happy. And yes, this is an enlarged part of the frame, and it's the only piece I can actually show. Still, it is a far better version of the scene than anything that was shown in Wheel of Time. But it's trying to show his vulnerable side, that this is what he does when he needs some company. He needs someone to give him a bit more confidence. The king can't replace you, the king needs you, no matter what they think about you, no matter what they do. You must continue on your path and remain strong. Even this is an interesting angle, that everyone else sees him a certain way. They think he behaves a certain way, and they never see this side of him. They never know it exists because he keeps it hidden away in the privacy behind locked doors. In front of them, he must remain strong. Matt Smith in this one episode has more depth than every other character in the entire show combined. And quite honestly, at this point, I'm just like, can we just have a show about him, please? Let's just make it all about him. We even get this shot, which is very odd from anything else we see in the episode, even when it's to his detriment. You can't like him too much though, because next we get the tournament scene and you find out he's actually a really, really horrible person in public. Maybe there's a reason why they don't like him after all. But if you want the perfect one-scene summary of this character, this tournament entrance is it. Because she enters, she walks off to her right, walks all the way down the side to the front of the room, and then dashes across it in front of the king who's giving a speech to a seat. She could have just gone left and avoided everything, but instead, no. Seriously, the inconsiderate little brat, it's like she's never been to a cinema screen before. Oh wait. But don't worry, because it does mean that these two link up again, and that means infinite boredom is incoming. But first, at least we get some fighting, which is cool. But he does announce that the queen has gone into labor. I'm sure nothing will go wrong there in a Game of Thrones TV series. But first, we get a little bit of jousting. Now probably isn't a good time to tell you that my guilty pleasure movie is A Knight's Tale. Don't crucify me, I enjoyed it, alright? I enjoyed it. We will rock you at a jousting festival, yes! They don't make them like that anymore. But either way, we get this guy, a commoner, who has an interesting way of fighting. By that, I mean he keeps beating all of the people that he faces over and over again. The two sons of Baratheon. The jousting's cool, the fights are good. We have to have these little intermissions, though, of just what is basically mindless gossip. Like, seriously, if I wanted this, I'd go and watch Bridget Jones's Diary. Now, the knights do come up and start asking for people's favour. This guy asked for a favour of the queen who never was. You know, the little baby from the start that wasn't chosen by everybody. For some reason, that's incredibly offensive. I don't know why. All the nobles agreed. They're like, oh, you can take his head for that. No, I'll let him get away with it. It's an accurate description. I don't know why you're getting offended, dear. She does drop her ring on his pole, though, so, you know, can't be that offended. Oh, this person's promised to this person and he's promised to him. Oh, you never know what this one's done over here. I can't stand the mindless gossip. It's driving me insane. If the entire story is based around these two people manipulating other people for the crowd, I'm literally going to lose my mind. Do you want any political intrigue? No, I'd be really interested to know whose daughter's banging who behind the bike sheds. Like it's a 12-year-old high school drama. Shall we go and dance and have a dance scene? No, don't think we should. Let's get back to the jousting, shall we? Yeah, let's get back to something entertaining.
Let's get on with it.
You're telling me, love.
That Lady Eleanor is hiding a sprawling belly beneath her dress.
Literally nobody cares. Do you want a show about jousting, sword fighting, and going out into the streets annihilating criminals in the face? No. I want to know who's been banging somebody behind the bike sheds. That'll be interesting. Oh, this show isn't made for you. I completely agree. Either way, we get back to the jousting. Still think A Knight's Tale did it better. Although the guy does get annihilated off horseback once more. It's like, oh, that guy's beaten two people. It must be very interesting, isn't it? Yes. Look, this isn't She-Hulk. We don't have apps to swipe right on our phone anymore. Now, apparently, we use jousting tournaments to see our future partner. Later on, they do fall for him, even though he happens to be a common-born son. I do have to question, though, even as a commoner, why did they give his armor dad bod? Like, seriously, that is one hell of a gut on that armor, dude. Things get a little bit different for Matt Smith, though, who gets to choose the person he's about to fight. So Matt chooses this guy, the firstborn son of the Hand of the King. Definitely no grudge held there. Literally everyone can see what's coming, or at least can imagine what's coming. They start off and it's all perfectly normal, at least until they turn out to be evenly matched anyway. They both take hits and clearly he's not gonna let that stand. Going back for a second go, and we get this lovely angle as he doesn't even aim for the guy, he just goes for the horse's legs. Ends as well as you would expect, and yes, that's a guy's face sliding across the ground. The thing is, there's a load of shock faces, and I keep expecting something to happen. I'm like, okay, surely he's broken the tournament rules. Surely you have to go for the guy and not the legs of the horse. But everyone's shocked. Oh, you can't do that. And yet nobody says anything, does anything, or brings up any kind of rules at all. Instead, we get this, and he just wins? Begs the question why everybody doesn't do it, to be honest. If there's no rules which actively prevent you from doing it, then that would be the way to win. So why doesn't everyone do it? Either you enforce the rules, or the rules might as well not exist. No one even complains. He even comes up and get his wreaths off the two little daughters. This would have made sense if you brought up the rules and said you couldn't do it, but then didn't dare confront him. But everyone's just like, oh, well, I guess it's fine. It's such a weird scene. But he does ask for her favor, and he gets it. And no, I'm sure we're not setting up things for the future. From the trailers and this episode, it looks like these two people are going to be the most important people of the entire series. And if they are, I'm going to be in hell. But a guy comes and passes a message to the king. He looks very worried, and he really should be. There's lots of screaming, and I'm not going to put you through that because it's horrible. She's giving birth, the baby's breached, and they can't fix it. And the king has to make a decision. Do you want to save the baby, or do you want to save your wife? It's a horrible decision one no one wants to go through. Although this is the king, he needs an heir, and I think everybody at this exact instant knows what he's going to decide. And this is all part of them saying you only have a 50% chance of making it. Because we're not interested in realism, we just want to push a certain opinion on people and lie to them. Because the show's more interested in rewriting history and telling the populations, no. Half of everyone that existed had a horrible time back then. Oh, you wouldn't believe it. And you wouldn't, because it wasn't true. But we go back to the tournament, and things take a turn for the worse. You see, this guy decides, yeah, I lost, but I'm just gonna drag him from horseback anyway, and it causes a bit of trouble. You see, it seems there aren't rules for this fight, so they just start having a fight on the ground, and everyone's getting involved, and basically, a lot of people, they don't get out of this one. I have a feeling that a mace in the back of your kneecap isn't going to be good for your future life experience. Of course, then other people get involved, and then we get into a massive melee in the middle of a tournament ground. Not a single person yells, says no, stop it, this is against the rules, tries to intervene. Nothing, no, it's just gonna happen. I don't know how you expect to run a tournament with no rules, but House Targaryen, eh? We do get to see this, though. She picks her nails when she's nervous. Again, set up and payoff. The show does it well, but does it later on, and will probably do it throughout the entire series. Even for this character, there's part of the stuff I like, which is a shame, because I think the reviews are better when I despise the thing. But back to the birth is saying goodbye, I love you, and she has no idea what's about to happen to her, which is a good thing, because you really wouldn't want to know what's happening next. Knives are used, and they try to save the baby. Only one of them can survive, and he chose the baby. Let's hope he doesn't live to regret that, because that would be a really horrible thing to add to a Game of Thrones story, wouldn't it? And again, this is Game of Thrones. If you can't see the plot coming from here, then I don't know why you're watching a Game of Thrones review. She's only screaming because she thought she had a role in a major TV series and then found out she was in it for all of 30 minutes. But back to the fight, and the commoner is fighting Matt Smith. And they have an excellent little exchange, which ends up in Matt Smith getting dragged across the central bar on his back. His chivalrous attitude will kick in, and he'll definitely take that on the chin, especially after he gets dumped on the ground. Yeah, he's definitely not yelled for his sword and wants to carry on the fight. What comes next is sword versus mace with shield, and it's very quickly edited, but there are some really cool moments in it. Not only did they use the mace and the sword, but they actually use the shield as a weapon, which you don't see that often. Especially like the whole mace shattering the shield thing. Look, he's got like a little corner of it. Always annoys me in games that all of my stuff has durability, but it turns out in a mid-fight, I like it. Like, Matt Smith is getting annihilated, hit every way. And you get this weird cross-section of images where the two guys are fighting for their life, and she's fighting for babies, I suppose. Now, they did say that essentially lying on their back was their battlefield. I don't think when she said that, she thought it would be quite so literal. Although it is interesting that she said she had 5 in the last 10 years, and one of the actors said it was a 50-50 chance of making it. I don't think that maths really adds up. But the fight's pretty varied. We even get the mace wrapping around the sword, and then he starts, like, pulling the sword towards him. You don't see that in many fights. The sword does seem to be bending when you pause it, though. Although I have to say, with any TV series or movie, pausing it and looking for errors is probably a bit unfair. It is designed to be watched in real time, so I'm not too fussed about that. But they just keep going at it. They're in full suits of armor. They're knackered by the end of it. They kind of both lose their weapons and their shields. They're just using their feet and everything. It's a really brutal fight, but I enjoy it. I want more of this in my TV series, please. Now, one of my favorite parts of the fight, and honestly, I don't know why it is, but it's this bit where he just picks up a shield, blocks a hit with it, and then just shoots it at the guy's face. I don't know why I enjoyed that so much. It's just, this fight was very varied, considering it was sword, mace, and shield, and yet they got everything in. They used their feet, their hands, the actual weapons themselves, the swords, the shields, bits of shields that broke off. I've always been an action guy for movies and TV series. I'm a sucker for it, and I thought this was really well done. And if we could have more of this and less of just the, oh, well, you know, someone else is pregnant and gossiping behind the women's backs, then I'd probably have even liked the show. But of course, arrogance and the need to show off is his downfall as he goes to already brag to the king. And the king also thinks he's won. Of course, you should probably make sure the person yields before you do it, and that is why this guy is about to smack him over the back of the face. Whoops. Kicks his sword away, stamps on his dagger hand, and forces him to yield. I'm sure that won't come back to bite him in the arse in the future. You have just humiliated Matt Smith. Don't you know that guy can travel through time and space? So the baby's alive, the queen is dead, and Matt Smith has been absolutely humiliated by a commoner. I'm sure absolutely nothing could go wrong from this point in Game of Thrones. The commoner takes his helmet off. Oh, doesn't he look cute? Oh. Seriously, nobody cares. He asks for the princess's favor, and she gives it to him. Of course, without a lance, she just has to kind of lob it on his face like it's some kind of fairground ride. See if you can get this over your neck, mate. So now we have two noble ladies have given their favor to two entirely different blokes. I'm sure absolutely nothing could come from this. There's no problems here that we can see coming in the future at all. And this is my problem. The guy with the sword and the guy with the mace were great characters. They were great entertainment. It's just unfortunate, the other side of the story, which is going to be pushed as the main part of the story, so I can get my interesting Matt Smith drama. Ding dong, the queen is dead. But don't worry, sir, you've got a son. His dream was right. The baby has dangly bits and all is well for at least 5 minutes. You've got an heir. There's absolutely nothing could go wrong from this point onwards that I can see. All the nobles suddenly realize the queen is dead and start rushing to it because, you know, we should probably not let a disaster go to waste. There's definitely political intrigue to be had here. Of course, when you cut to a picture of the ocean, yeah, maybe 5 minutes was a bit generous, especially when there's a dragon involved. Oh wait, did you think the funeral pyre was just for the wife? No, the baby's gone as well, unfortunately. Whoops. And the thing is, this is one of the scenes that I really liked, because once again, Matt Smith coming up is like, look, they're waiting for you. She says, I wonder if in those few hours my father finally found happiness. And he says, your father needs you. More now than ever before. You know, and she's mouthing off, I will never be his son, oh, I'm such a disappointment, blah, 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 whine. But it shows what he cared about in this moment was sending the daughter off to protect the father. Protect his brother. He cared about how he felt. Yeah, sure, he may be a lawful evil guy that just goes around cutting people's hands off. I'm not saying he's a good guy, but he is interesting and he does care about the people around him and protecting the people around him. This character has depth. He has something there which is entertaining. He's not just, oh, I'm evil, ah. Compared to everybody else, which is either two-dimensional, cardboard, and just boring. Either way, the father's distraught, she says Dracarys, and the dragon goes and burns the body. Let's be honest, disposing of the body probably cost more than the entire fight in the last scene just because it's CGI. But we immediately cut to the court, and everyone's like, we should probably work out what to do because your heirs just died, and, we've got to worry about the future of the realm.
Tragedies have left you without an obvious heir.
The king has an heir. And he's right, he's got Matt Smith. It's almost as if royal families have a deliberate natural line of succession for a reason, so that these kind of problems don't happen. And the problems only occur when everyone starts causing trouble and tries to change the lines of succession. Honestly, I don't know whether even having this conversation right now, it's very weird. But this dude being a snake in the grass is like, oh yeah, well, we need to change it because, you know, that guy's a tyrant.
If Daemon were to remain the uncontested heir, it could destabilize the realm.
That doesn't even make any sense. You know what would destabilize the realm? Changing the line of succession. That's why we don't do it. Not only is this a pointless argument, it's literally illogical and doesn't make any sense from a writing perspective. Welcome to why I started despising the show, as well as the boredom. Matt Smith is the only character in the show which has depth and makes sense, and in this, none of this entire bit makes sense at all.
It could destabilize the realm.
The realm? Or this council?
He's the only one making any sense right now. So they bring up the gold cloaks and say no one can doubt his ambition, and the king's like, well, I don't think he has the ambition to be a leader. And besides, his city watch army is an army that you gave him. Turns out this guy is just trying to manipulate everything he can and is an absolute imbecile that messes up at every single turn. But is the best character, has been watching this illogical tripe which is terribly written the entire way through.
What are you saying? My brother would murder me, take my crown.
I mean, probably, but only if you betrayed him. By, I don't know, changing the line of succession for no reason when he is the rightful heir. We're supposed to think that he's doing something wrong right now. Although I do like this bit.
Daemon has ambition, yeah, but not for the throne. He lacks the patience for it.
It's like, haha, brother, you underestimate me. Because remember, he was sitting on the throne earlier. I'm sure he wasn't doing anything there. Oh yeah, got this cut which is strangely infected from sitting on the throne. I'm sure nothing's been happening to it.
The gods have yet to make a man who lacks the patience for absolute power.
I mean, you're kind of just grassing on yourself there, aren't you? That's a self-report if ever I've heard one. But this guy is a complete moron and says, under the circumstances, what we should do is name a successor. Because I'm sure absolutely nothing can go wrong with that. We don't have any reason to change the line of succession, and the actual genuine successor, who should be king, has a 2,000-man strong army, but we should definitely just name somebody else arbitrarily. At this point is where I begin to doubt George R.R. Martin's writing talents, if this is what he actually wrote. Because none of this makes any sense. But they decide to come up with another idea of who it could possibly be. And oh, I couldn't guess who it could possibly be.
Rhaenyra, a girl. No queen has ever sat the Iron Throne.
Yeah, because that's the biggest problem with it. How about if she takes over and becomes a main character, I'll need to consume so much caffeine just to stay awake that my mind might actually teleport to another dimension. Why doesn't anyone factor that into their equations? Like, well, no rule goes against it. Yes, except the rule of who should actually be successor in the line of lineage, which is already defined. Which you've decided to change. This is Rings of Power all over again. Oh, well, no one actually said that this didn't happen specifically. No, but we do have rules about what actually should happen that we should be following. And they just start whining, oh, he's violent. Oh, But of course, there is a third party who suggested, his wife, doing it for his own advancement, but no one really takes it seriously. And quite frankly, the only surprising thing about this scene is that it took him so long to actually explode.
My wife and son are dead!
It's something he should have said a long time ago and shut down this entire discussion, which is literally treason against the legitimate future king, and only now has anyone decided to go, yeah, maybe we shouldn't be talking about this. None of this makes sense. And he didn't stop it because of the treason and changing the line of succession is abhorrent. No, he changed it because he finally lost control of his fifis. Now, we find out just how manipulative this guy is when he decides to send his daughter to the king. Oh, I'm sure he'd love some company in this moment of weakness. Maybe you could get one of them little, heirs inside you. That'll be fun. I've literally just summarized this entire scene in about 20 seconds. It goes on for ages and it's so boring. I'm not going to put you through it. She's just like, oh no, I can't go in his chambers. Ah! Then we cut to his chambers and he's looking at his ring. She's going to be making him try and look at hers soon enough. And she comes in with a book of histories. I have to say, if that's your best tactic, yeah, no wonder you don't have an heir inside you already. There's a big, massively long scene in it where literally nothing happens, and so I'm going to skip it all because I'm so bored. And then we get to another scene, which I can't show you, and I had to be very specific about the screenshot, which I've selected here. But basically, Matt Smith is grieving. He's very upset with the entire situation. He doesn't want trouble. He's unhappy with the fact that everything's gone horribly wrong, but, as always, he shows it in different ways. He shows it in private. He's keeping it to himself. Yes, he's surrounded by people who are doing, interesting things, shall we say. Very Game of Thrones things. But the point of this scene is he's not partaking in any of it. He's miserable, surrounded by people, and this is how he copes. And nobody else seems to understand that's how he copes. So when he's asked to do a speech, he's put on the spot. He says what comes to his mind, what he thinks people want to hear, what he thinks people expect him to say, the persona that he puts out into the world. Of course, all that goes horribly wrong. You'd expect his brother to believe him, but no. So instead, we get the rest of the series. The manipulative little beggar has said that, oh yeah, last time he was at one of those sort of, entertainment places, shall we call them, for this video? It was a celebration of the horror that happened to you and your wife. And he named your latest heir for a day.
For a day.
It's a good job we focused in on her so we know she's the main character for the rest of the series. We should employ someone as one of the main characters who's a literal block of wood. I'm sure the cast will really enjoy that. So the king is justifiably angry, although he seems to take it way further than I ever would have expected, and he drags him in front of him on the throne. Of course, there's no intimidating his brother.
You cut the image of the conqueror.
And the king only has one thing on his mind. Did you say it? Did you style him heir for a day? At this point, he probably realizes he's messed up, but there's not much to do about it now. Especially when the king threatens to have his Kingsguard cut out his tongue, although I am interested to know whether the 4 Kingsguard would actually manage to do it. That'll be an interesting fight. Unfortunately, we don't get that fight. But this is again another interesting scene, led by Matt Smith, the king involved, not a princess whining about somebody in sight.
We must all mourn in our own way, Your Grace.
If only he'd taken that as it was meant, but instead, no, rage wins the day. He's literally there, gripping the sword, shaking it in rage. We completely misinterpret the entire event. He says, you have no allies at court but me, I've always defended you. And yet, he doesn't seem to understand him one bit.
I've only ever spoken the truth. I see Otto Hightower for what he is.
An unwavering and loyal hand.
An unexpected jibe, but a very accurate one, I've got to be honest. And they carry on insulting people until they get to this line.
He doesn't protect you. I would.
From what?
Yourself.
This is the kind of problem that we missed, the interaction between these two. There were so many ways this story could have gone that could have been so much more interesting than what we're about to get, because what we're about to get is 2 men being led around by 2 little princesses, which are actually the brains behind the operation. And you see this, the interaction between these two, and it was great. And yet we could have had more of it even in this episode alone. And instead, no, we didn't have time for that because we had to worry about 2 people gossiping about who was going with who and who was hiding a bump underneath their dress. How entertaining.
And that council of leeches knows it. They all prey on you for their own end.
You're weak, and I would have protected you. I would have protected you from yourself. The lawful evil, the loving brother. I have to say, this character has more depth than literally any of the other characters. But at least this kind of relationship between the 2 of them I could have enjoyed. I did enjoy for this episode. This is one of the better scenes, one of the interesting scenes. I find a lot of this series so far is literally who is on the screen, what characters are on the screen, and what characters are involved. Because only when certain characters are nowhere to be seen. And that's the end of the episode is so much more interesting than the start. And it's literally because it focuses on different people. But it's not as if it matters, because this is where the show takes a turn. The king decides he's no longer going to have Matt Smith as his heir. He's going to aim a new one, despite the fact that it goes against all of the rules of succession and would be a really stupid thing to do. And so he names the princess. He tells Matt Smith to go away, and that is where the series is going. That's going to be the future story. We're going to end up with new primary characters, which aren't any of the ones which have been interesting in this episode. We're going to end up with the cardboard cutouts as the new leaders. Welcome, it's not She-Hulk, but it might be in episode 2. He takes a step forward, all the guard grab their swords. There's no way you're approaching him in this mood. And he knows at this point, he's probably going to need a different tactic. But there's one final interesting part of this scene. As he turns around and walks away, the king puts his hand on the throne, and he cuts himself on the jagged edges of the sword. Now, the sword throne is obviously made of swords. It's going to be sharp. You need to be careful how you actually put your hands away. But, and I don't know anything, I have no idea of the sides. This is just my theory for the future, considering what we already know. It'd be interesting if someone put poison on that throne, wouldn't it? Especially considering he's already been there before. What if he's not the good brother? I wish he was. I hope he was. But considering he's cut himself, and he's already got lesions from the sword throne, which looked particularly nasty, either he's already playing the long game, and that's why he was smirking before about, oh yeah, he just doesn't have the ambition or the patience to do it, and he actually has been doing this to him for a long time, or this is just setting up future episodes. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know any spoilers. This is just my own theory. And I don't consider it a spoiler. I'm just theorizing based off the information we already have in front of us. I could be entirely wrong, and I probably am. But then we cut to the dragon's head, the king and his new future heir, who's going to be a massive disaster both for the throne and for the future of the series. He's proving to everyone that, oh yeah, fire doesn't hurt these people. And I'm skipping so much of this scene because it's so boring. He's like, what do you see when you look at dragons? Oh, well, everyone else sees that we're close to gods, but I just see that we're really human. Says the idea that we control the dragons is an illusion. He says, actually, they're just a power that man should never have trifled with. I'm like, I don't know about that, dude. Your entire kingdom rests on the fact that you can control dragons, so if I were you, I wouldn't complain too hard. Although he says that they brought Valeria's doom, and it's like, well, are they supposed to bring you yours? Because we already know where this ends, and they don't. I don't know why they did. Are we going to find out what happened to Valeria in this series? That'd actually be quite interesting. No, I've not read the book. I don't know. But he says, sorry, I have wasted the years wanting for a son. Actually, I should have had you as my successor all along. Like, but those weren't the rule of succession. It was supposed to go to the male who's your brother. The problems come when you change the rules, when you change them arbitrarily for no reason. Instead, we get, you're the best of your mother. You could be amazing. You're going to be a great queen. Where? Oh.
Daemon was not made to wear the crown.
There's literally no proof of that. The only evidence we have in the show that he wouldn't have been a good king is supposedly the criminal thing, but all of you said they were actual criminals, so I'm not sure why I'm supposed to be upset about it. I mean, yes, he did break the rules of the tournament about the hand's son, but he was right about the hand. And so we go through this scene where she's getting ready to be made his heir. But he's like warning her, the Iron Throne's the most dangerous seat in the world. And yet despite all this, she's more than willing to sit on it. I don't know, maybe she's the power-hungry one after all. Or can't we tell that in today's day and age? Meanwhile, we find out that Matt Smith's preparing his dragons for what's to come. And he gives the story of the future. The story of the series that we've already seen, which ended in disaster and nobody likes. The story of the White Walkers coming down from the winter. The one that only dragons can stop. That a Targaryen must be on the Iron Throne in order to unify the whole island against them, otherwise all of humanity will die.
Aegon called his dream the Song of Ice and Fire.
And everyone went mental. Oh, I can't believe he said the name of the series. This is amazing. This is the best part of the series. Oh, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. No, I'm not joking. It really is that easy for some people. My favorite part of his speech, though, was this.
On the Iron Throne, a king or queen.
He specifically says a king or queen, despite the fact that earlier in the show, they actually said that a queen has never sat on the Iron Throne and can't lead. So how come one of your ancestors had already given a vision of the future, a dream, that it could be a king or a queen? If they could see the future, why wouldn't they know? Now, we know why they said that, because we know who it was. But in this time, in this day and age, they would have expected it to have dangly bits. And if they didn't expect it, it would have been unusual, and so it would have been mentioned in the vision of the future which they prophesized. But don't think about the plot, just consume, just consume. But he says this secret is the most powerful of all the Targaryens. It's passed down from the king to his successor, and now you must bear this. It's like, oh, really? After everything that we had before, this is the big ending to the show, is it? A story that we already know? Let's throw in a bit of nostalgia bait, they'll love that. But Matt rides his dragon, and she becomes the future heir. Heir to the Iron Throne. And with that, they seal the fate of their entire nation. All because they couldn't obey their own lines of lineage. I don't know, am I supposed to feel sorry for them? Am I supposed to be proud that they've changed it? Because quite frankly, I think they're all morons for changing the law as it already stood. These things have lines of lineage for a reason, and there was no need to change this one because there were still living descendants. But have you considered that we needed to change it for girl power? George R.R. Martin, the modern savior of the West. I think that says it all about where we're going to go for the rest of the series. I'm in hell. And that is why I'm mixed about this series. There were some scenes which I really liked. I liked where they introduced the City Watch and they went out into the streets. I liked the jousting and the fights that were there. I like the ensuing scene where the king was talking to the council and Matt Smith was watching on from the side. And then the scene that followed where they're discussing exactly what Matt Smith intended, that I will protect you from yourself because you're weak and you need me, because otherwise people will walk all over you and take advantage of you. It's like, yes, okay, maybe he would just be the one taking advantage of him, but they were blood, they were brothers, and it would have been better. But instead, the king got influenced, easily led by everyone else, into changing the rules. The rules so he might have thought that his own daughter could get involved, that she could be queen. He's got maneuvered once more. I liked all of that. I just don't like where the show's going, and I don't like what was approximately half the cast. Because despite how much I enjoyed Matt Smith and the king, you do have everyone else who were just two-dimensional cardboard characters. Now, this was the first episode. Maybe they'll get more depth. Maybe other people will be introduced, like that commoner who won all the tournaments, who will no doubt become one of the main characters. But you've also got the princess, who's now the heir, and her best friend. And we know that this story transforms into two women using men to fight over the realm, and that really just sounds like an awful idea for a story. For the fact that this was overall kind of just meh. There was a lot of boredom and some stuff I liked, and I find that to actually be a worse show for me. I'd rather something be great or be awful. This middle ground, this I'm just going to bore you to tears with just the odd bit to draw you in, is the worst. And that's why I don't know how well this review went. I'm going to cut it together afterwards, but I don't know whether it's entertaining or interesting or whether you'll enjoy it. So I'm going to publish it, and then I'm literally going to wait for you to comment down below and tell me what you think. Do you want me to review the rest? Because I have no idea how this is going to turn out. I'll either do future reviews like this, or I'll just do a live stream and talk about it on there, because that may well go better for a show like this, where it could just be, kind of good, kind of bad, some stuff to like, some not to like. Maybe these reviews only work well when something is really genuinely terrible, like She-Hulk was. Maybe that's just where you can take the piss and get some entertainment from it. Because this had some good moments, it had some great moments, but it had a lot of just terrible tripe. But not terrible because it was funny, just because it was boring, because the characters were two-dimensional, because there was nothing to them. Because we were sitting there listening to two type Bs gossip like fisherwomen about who was pregnant or who was with who. Stuff which makes me want to eat my own foot, just so I can feel alive again. But without Matt Smith, this episode would have gone an entirely different way. I don't think I would have enjoyed it anywhere near as much, and I think it would have been boring for almost all of it. So while I wasn't that big of a fan of Matt Smith when he was Doctor Who, I have to say for this, it is incredible casting. I think he absolutely nailed it. And if there's one saving grace of the episode, then it's definitely him. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Upcoming reviews are She-Hulk, House of Dragon, Andor, and Rings of Power. How far we'll get with all of them, we'll see. Do some of them just become live stream reviews? Those are in your hands, so let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. But for now, that's it from me. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.